private IP address space of 192.168.1.3 or something thereof. This is actually the Exchange unit, the Active Directory, and I'm going to go into Active Directory. And I haven't fancied it up. I'm going to go and copy this user, and I'm going to create a user 3. So, setting up an email box for this user. And there's the email box. Again, Exchange is running on this system. So the email box was just created. This is user 3. I had user 1 and user 2 there. I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to go into my Outlook Web Access. It just happened to be the easiest MUA, right, that I could put on this machine. And I'm going to log in as user 1, the existing account. And there's an overburdened Microsoft Exchange server right there for you. It's running IIS, it's running Exchange, it's running Domain Controller. Everybody's ever worked with a small business server. By the way, I'm not running Vista. This is a skin. I don't know how many of you have had exposure to Vista, but, right? Yeah. Yeah. There's Mimo, okay? Mimo is the gateway. This is running Mail Scanner. Go ahead and log in. Yeah, I know I'm logging in as root. I should not be doing that. This, too, is, okay, a box that's running on a RFC 1918 address, and it's all private to this machine. But this is actually running the Mail Scanner and the Mail Gateway. So what we're going to do is we're just going to watch. We'll watch the syslog. And we'll watch the mail log. Okay, we'll just watch this mail log here, and that's what was left in there. So let me just put a little delimiter. And then I've got Climo. And Climo is going to be our client. Again, it's a Debian box just because this was the smallest footprint for a mail server I could actually, or a mail client that I could create. And I'm going to run mutt here. So I'm going to create a new little email here to user1@foo.com. And the test is going to be right now. I'm going to say test. I'm going to go ahead and send that off. And it's going to send it straight to the postfix MTA. It's actually doing some DNS lookup right now. I've got a DNS server running on one of these. Okay, the MTA is going to pull in that email, and what you see down here is Mail Scanner actually scanning that email, and it's saying, hey, one uninfected email, and it's delivering that one email to the user1@foo.com. And there's a number of pieces of information that are going to actually be tied to that. And then you're going to see the postfix process, or the egress process, deleting it out of the queue. So we'll check the mailbox. Again, an overburdened Exchange unit, right? The reason why we want a Mail Gateway. If you've ever read the specs, it's unbelievable. There's our test message, and, on this, we've actually added a footer that says, hey, this message has been scanned for viruses and dangerous content by Mail Scanner and is believed to be clean. We can easily substitute this with any message we like. That's the beauty and flexibility of Mail Scanner. I've actually chosen to remove it entirely when something's good. So, we've got a working system. Now, let's take a look at, not on the client, but Mimo. Okay. Let's take a look at the postfix directory. Pretty pretty small number of configuration scripts, right? If I was running sendmail, I'd actually have basically the same number. It'd just be the main configuration that I change would be in a different directory. There'd be a lot more of them. If I look at my main.config, it's as simple as this. And actually, since the last version I've used, they've added in the TLS, which is layer security. But right there is my recipient relay maps, okay? And it's going to tell it, before you accept any mail, please check this recipient table to make sure that these users exist. And that script that I talked about, that interfaces with the Exchange unit, I'll show you here, that populates that relay recipients map, okay? There's a transport map that basically tells it what destined mail server to send it to, or Exchange or a Lotus server. There's a header check. The header check is actually useful because we don't have to create a second MTA for the inbound mail. What we'll do is we'll do header checks on incoming mail, and if they match incoming mail, we'll drop them to a hold queue, and we'll tell Mail Scanner to watch that hold queue. Mail Scanner will process whatever's in that hold queue, throw it to the incoming queue, and the MTA, the outbound MTA, will pick it up and process that, send it to the transport, which is the destined Exchange gateway or Exchange unit. So you can set up what you'd like to relay from. Like sometimes I like to relay from the server farm. Okay, in this case, I just said 192.168.1.0. Local recipient maps, we can actually put in DNS BLs right here. So we can actually tell Postfix on incoming mail, check a black hole list or a real-time black hole list, an RBL, to see if that exists, that IP it's coming from exists. If it does, just deny it at the door. Okay? That's a little risky because if somebody ends up, and I've actually had this instance, if somebody mistakenly ends up on an RBL, you're denying it at the door. You're never going to accept mail for that. So it's kind of risky. But what you could do is you could put in dynamic IP lists. Okay? Say anything coming from a DSL or a cable modem IP pool, just drop. There's something called a bogan list, which is bogus IPs that should not be routed anywhere. ICANN or IANA have not mapped them out to anybody that's responsible for them, so they end up on something called a bogan list. You can definitely add a text file here and throw that bogan list. So, what is in that relay recipients map? Right now, if you notice, the last two are user 1 and user 2. Now, there's some others up there that Exchange puts in by default, okay, like your offline address book and a couple others. User 1 and user 2 were the two valid accounts that I had on this domain up until I created user 3. There's a nice little Perl script, and it's out there. It's out there on the internet. If you read one of those wikis, you'll find it. You'll trip over it. That's actually user local bin and get LDAP SMTP. This is a little script that you can install Perl, install the LDAP client, and I tend not to like PAN, but you can actually add this in Debian with an apt get, so that's pretty sweet. Add in an LDAP client. We set up our domain controller, our base where our users are at, okay? One of the users that's allowed to access the LDAP, and the rest of the script, it's only about 225 lines, 300 lines, maybe 400. We'll basically pull it out. You can actually add in custom examples. So if you have something that isn't in your Exchange unit or Lotus Notes unit, you can actually add in addresses here at the bottom, and it's just a print statement. They're commented out right now. Now, if I were to do a get, whoops, I got to switch the directory first. Get LDAP SMTP, and it's printing it out to a file. If I do an update, which all this is a number of scripts tied together. Whoops. There it is. Okay. All this is doing is changing directory in a postfix. running the postmap command. Oh, I'm sorry. There it is. Running the git LDAP SMTP, changing directory, going in, running the postmap command, okay, and then telling it to reload. And I actually set this for like every half hour, every hour. Some servers I set it for every day, depending on the number of users that get added daily. If we go to our postfix directory and we cat that recipient list, you'll notice that user 3 is now in there. So this is the marriage of Linux to Windows. We can actually do this. If you don't do this, what you're going to do is you're going to accept mail for everybody that Harvest Block attacks you. Okay? And this is a problem. It takes that mail server, and what you're going to find is you're going to have it in place for a couple months, and then all of a sudden people are going to start complaining that it takes a half hour to get an email from an outside contact. Okay? Because you're processing everything. That's true if you also install these spam fighting utilities on Exchange as well, because Exchange is overburdened, as I always say. So, let's take a look at the mail scanner config. The mail scanner configs are pretty sweet. We got a number of file name rules. We got a number of file type rules. We can actually add in custom functions. Now, one of the functions, I haven't quite played with it yet, is you can actually limit the amount of emails that you receive from a particular geographic location on the globe. So you could actually say, I only want to receive 500 to 1,000 emails from the RIPE network or the, I'm trying to think of another one here. I haven't memorized these. RIPE, well, Aaron, LACNIC, Latin and South America. Okay, and you can actually limit the number of emails that you actually bring in per day. And you can set it per hour. You can do all of that. That's all in the custom configs. I haven't quite played with them yet, so I'm not very familiar whether or not they're successful. Otherwise, I'd be talking about them today. There's a country domains, okay, and that's where each country has their IPs. There's an auto-update functionality, the phishing and safe sites. Some sites phish not because they want to, but because they have to. I think Chase Bank is one of them that sends email in behalf of another party. And then the virus scanner configs, where you actually plug in virus scanners. Now, the main config for Mail Scanner is well documented. I'm just going to scroll down through it. What's nice about it is you can actually tell it what user to run as, and you can actually tell it to run as postfix. So if somebody exploits the Mail Scanner, they're not going to get root. They're not going to get keys to the kingdom. They're going to get postfix. Postfix has enough, rights to actually spam, but not give over your entire network. So I'll tell you what, that's pretty much all that I have, other than a couple short links. One of the links is, of course, you set this up, you want to test this. ICARS, which is a test string that you can throw in an email. I've actually put a space in there so my virus scanner doesn't pick it up. ICARS is a test file, an antivirus test file. If I throw this in here, before we end, let's go ahead and actually send a virus to this system, see how it handles it. And then I'll open it up to questions. Click into it. To user1 at foo.com. Subject is test of 149B. And I'll paste that string in. Edit, paste. Hopefully the virus scanner doesn't pick this up. Save that out and send it along. So that was just sent. Now, ICARS, and you'll actually see when I save this, my virus scanner will say, hey, what are you doing? It deletes the file. So much for the ICARS. So we get a good valid test for viruses. There's also one for spam called GTube, or the generic test for use. And there's its string. whenever